Most of us think that what kills a car is an accident or extreme mileage. The truth, however, is much worse. You are killing your car every day without even knowing it. Today, I'm going to show you the 7 deadly sins of drivers that keep mechanics smiling and your bank accounts draining. One of these points is an absolute classic that could cost you several $1,000s. Check and see if you're doing this to your car right now. Listen, we could spend hours talking about horsepower, tuning, or how the car looks on the outside, but if we forget one absolutely fundamental thing, none of the rest matters. I'm talking about changing your engine oil. I know it sounds like the most boring topic in the world, but the brutal truth is this. Oil is the only thing keeping your engine from becoming an expensive piece of scrap metal. Imagine that while you're driving, metal is rubbing against metal thousands of times per minute at temperatures that would melt plastic in a second. The only barrier holding it all together is a razor-thin oil film. If that film breaks because the oil is old, worn out, or there's simply not enough of it, it's game over. The biggest mistake I see is blindly believing what manufacturers put in the manuals. Those famous long life intervals, changing oil every 30,000 kilometers. Ladies and gentlemen, that's marketing, not engineering. After 15,000 kilometers in a typical city cycle, oil loses its chemical properties. It stops cleaning the engine and starts clogging it. It turns into this black sludge that slowly chokes the oil galleries and destroys turbochargers. You don't have to be a mechanic to remember this. You don't even need to know where the drain plug is. You just need to understand one thing. Fresh oil every 10,000 kilometers is the cheapest, simplest, and most effective insurance policy you can buy for your car. It doesn't matter if you're driving an old diesel or a brand new petrol straight from the showroom. Chemistry is ruthless. So, my advice is short. Don't try to save those few bucks once a year. An engine running on clean, fresh oil is an engine that will outlive the chassis it's sitting in. Take care of what's under the hood, because if the heart stops, no amount of tuning is going to help you. How about you guys? How often do you change yours? Do you stick strictly to 10,000, or do you wait for the computer to call it? Let's move on to the point that ends the life of most cars in our climate, underbody corrosion. Look, you can rebuild an engine, swap a gearbox, or refurbish injectors, but if the red plague gets deep into the structural frame, the car simply becomes a dangerous piece of furniture on wheels. The worst part is that most of us obsess over the paint, polishing the hood and applying expensive waxes while not looking underneath for years. And down there, in the dark under the splash guards, especially in older cars, horrible things are happening. Road salt, omnipresent moisture, and mud trapped in hollow sections are working against you 24/7, even when the car is sitting in the garage. When the first inconspicuous bubble, the size of a fingernail, appears on the side skirt, you should know that on the inside, there's probably nothing left to weld to because the rust has eaten straight through. Corrosion kills a car from the bottom up, and it does it in an incredibly sneaky way. First, the brake and fuel lines disappear. Then the control arm mounts and the subframe rot away. Until finally, you reach that critical moment where the inspector at the MOT sticks a screwdriver into the floor like it's butter and says, "Buddy, this isn't going anywhere. It's held together by nothing but underseal and a prayer." Remember, professional bodywork on the structural frame is hellishly expensive, labor-intensive, and in most cases, simply exceeds the market value of the car. It's a race against time that you can't win with half measures. So remember this, a regular underbody wash after winter and solid professional rust proofing done every few years isn't a pointless expense. It's the only way to keep your project from ending up as a parts donor at the scrapyard just because its spine rotted away and the frame rails turned to dust. Please, if you can spare 2 seconds to click like under this video, it will be a huge support for my work. Thank you. Let's move on to point number 3, something many drivers consider the height of fuel economy in car care. Driving at low RPMs, commonly known as grandpa-style driving. Do you think that shifting into 6th gear at 50 kilometers per hour and just feathering the throttle is doing your wallet a favor? You couldn't be more wrong. Today's engines, especially downsized ones with turbochargers, absolutely hate working under high load at low RPMs. When you floor the gas at 1,500 RPM, it causes massive pressure spikes inside the cylinders. This is the moment when your crankshaft bearings take such a beating that their lifespan is cut in half. Not enough? On top of that, you get LSPI, low-speed pre-ignition, which can literally shatter your pistons. But it doesn't end there. Driving like an eco-slug is the fastest way to gunk up your entire intake system. EGR valves get stuck, turbo vanes seize up, and your diesel DPF is screaming for mercy because it never gets the chance to reach the temperature needed to burn off the soot. Every now and then, an engine needs to breathe. It needs higher RPMs to maintain proper oil pressure and blow out all that carbon buildup settling inside. Remember, the fuel you're supposedly saving will be spent 10 times over at the mechanic's shop while cleaning the intake, or even worse, during a bottom-end engine rebuild. So, every once in a while, just let the car live a little and rev it up. Speaking of fuel, the next point on our list is closely related: low-quality fuel. Listen, the days when you could pour just about anything into an old diesel and it would keep running are gone for good. In cars like ours, equipped with common rail systems, the injectors operate under unimaginable pressure and their precision is measured in microns. Just one fill-up with fuel from a contaminated tank at some bargain station is enough for metal shavings or water to enter your fuel system. Water in the fuel is a death sentence for the high-pressure pump. It loses its lubrication and simply starts to seize, sending metal shards straight toward the injectors. The result? The car suddenly stalls, loses power, or starts smoking, and refurbishing the entire system costs not hundreds, but thousands of dollars. And the worst part is that this didn't happen because of the car's age, but because of our desire to save $10 on a full tank. If you want your engine to live, fuel up at reputable stations and, just as importantly, replace the fuel filter with every oil change. It's the cheapest insurance policy for your engine and fuel pump. The fifth point is an absolute plague: ignoring error lights on the dashboard. Listen, the check engine light isn't a Christmas ornament that's just there to glow. In a modern car, one small error can trigger a chain reaction that wipes your budget right off the board. Let's take fuel pressure errors as an example. Many drivers think, "Hey, the car still runs, it's just jerking a bit." But the truth is, with improper pressure, your injectors, those precision instruments worth thousands of dollars, take a massive beating. They operate in conditions they weren't designed for, which leads to them burning out or seizing up in no time. But that's not even the worst part. A classic example of shrugging it off is an error related to a clogged EGR valve. You might think, why should I care about some emissions stuff? Well, you should care a lot, because in most diesels, a broken EGR is a signal to the computer to block the DPF regeneration process. You drive like that for a week, 2, a month. And suddenly, it turns out the particulate filter is so clogged with soot that the car goes into limp mode in the middle of the highway. Then, instead of cleaning the valve for free by spending 3 hours on it, you're looking at a DPF replacement costing hundreds, or in expensive cars, even several $1,000s. Remember, a car rarely breaks down out of the blue. Usually, it's been begging for your attention for a long time through those very lights you don't want to see. And I have to admit, I'm no angel here either. Everything I record for you usually requires driving with errors for a long time, but that sacrifice is worth it to film something cool. If you appreciate it, please leave a like and subscribe. Thanks. Point number 6 is a topic that many of you neglect until steam starts pouring from under the hood: taking care of the cooling system. Listen, coolant isn't just colored water meant to keep things from freezing in the winter. It's advanced chemistry that protects the engine from the inside against corrosion, cavitation, and scale buildup. If you pour in the cheapest coolant from the supermarket or drive on plain water, you are handing your water pump and radiator a slow death by clogging up the passages. But coolant isn't everything. A key player here is the thermostat. If it gets stuck in the open position, your engine will be perpetually underheated, which drastically increases fuel consumption and part wear. However, the real drama begins when the thermostat sticks in the closed position. Then, the temperature skyrockets, and you have literally seconds to react before the head gasket gives out or a plastic flange snaps. In every car, these plastics become as brittle as glass with age. Neglected, old coolant loses its lubricating and anti-corrosive properties, causing seals to perish and leaks to appear that you'll end up hunting for weeks. Remember, a system flush every few years, a brand-name coolant with the right specs, and a working thermostat are a fraction of the cost you'd pay for an overhaul of an overheated engine, if it can even be saved at all. Don't risk it, because the cooling system is worse than an ex-girlfriend. It never forgives a mistake. The last one, point number 7, is a trap many of us fall into while trying to save the household budget: buying the cheapest aftermarket parts. Listen, a low price never comes out of nowhere. It's the result of inferior materials and a lack of quality control. You buy a cheap water flange, and suddenly during assembly, it turns out the coolant hoses don't fit. They're too loose and they leak. Or you install a thermostat from a theoretically good brand, only to find out it opens at 66 degrees instead of 88, and you have to replace it all over again. But the real nightmare is low-quality gaskets. These dirt-cheap rubber components often turn as hard as plastic after just a few months of heat exposure and simply stop sealing. The result? You just finished your service, but oil or coolant spots are appearing under the engine again because that $5 gasket petrified and failed. Then you pay twice for the same labor, wasting both your time and your nerves. Remember, in all modern cars, skimping on part quality is just a stay of execution. Sometimes it's better to wait a week, save up for a premium aftermarket part or the original OEM, rather than installing polished junk that will come back to haunt you at the worst possible moment. As the old mechanic's proverb goes, a poor man can't afford cheap solutions. If you enjoyed this video, check out my engine rebuild adventure. Many of the clips you just saw on the screen are from that project. Take care.